will people want the cars we're building today in 50 years? That's all I got.
I doubt it. Oh, look at that thing. I want that.
I know.
Is that in the shop?
I think, yeah, on that one it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't remember your first question.
Well,
so.
it was just sort of a brain dump. I think last time we talked a lot about the aesthetic of timber framing. So maybe this time we could talk about some of the more peripheral questions to that aesthetic, like creating a legacy. What if you built for the next generation? Why is land so appealing? And then structures crafted for hardworking leisure. So legacy, land, leisure. How about that?
Whew. I think that's a lot to talk about right there.
Yeah.
So, what is the first one? Legacy?
Legacy.
So, I don't watch much TV. As a family, we don't watch TV hardly ever. But we got, either my wife came across or someone mentioned it to us, a show that we checked out recently, and we're hooked on it. And it's based on a true story about a veterinarian named James Herriot, and I guess his books, his literature are great as well. But this takes place in, I want to say like 1930s, but it's this story of this vet who travels from his homeland in Scotland and then settles in this other part of England, and just the whole show is really well done. But the point I'm trying to get to is the scenery and just the old world buildings, and I would imagine that a lot of it is accurate as far as how they portray it. The buildings that are in this show on farms, those buildings, you can see the legacy in that. And the construction of these buildings, whether in town or out in the country on a little farm, they're just like thick stone walls, heavy timber framework holding the roofs up and making the inner room structures. And when you see that, it just screams like legacy. The people who put those buildings together weren't thinking about, I need to throw up a chicken coop because the birds need a roof over their head. They were thinking of they didn't have just a little rinky-dink chicken coop. Their chicken coop was half the size of this barn, and they had 30 to 50 hens in there, and the all these buildings, and even their fence work. Their fence work is these 1.5 foot thick walls of stone that are 5 feet tall, and they just wrap around the hills, and it's like, wow. Yeah, they weren't quitting anytime soon, and they expected their son to take over the farm and his son to take over the farm, and that was the mentality they carried with every structure they built. And I think that legacy, when your dad's dad put together something that you're using, it's a connection back to that prior generation that you can't replace with anything else.
Yeah, that's pretty deep. I hadn't really, the stone walls thing sticks out to me especially because even around here we'll see that. And these farmers, they just pulled the stones out of the field and then started stacking them up carefully, and it probably may have taken 10, 15 years to build that wall.
Oh yeah.
But the wall will last, with a little bit of patchwork and maintenance, 100 years easy. So yeah, looking into their minds a little more, they were building for their children. That's pretty selfless, honestly. It's a different way of thinking completely.
Yeah.
Instead of I'm going to be in my 8,000 square foot house, and just chilling with my wife and my dogs.
Yeah.
Probably just alienated half of our customer base.
No, it is a selfless way of thinking, and it's a way of thinking that we're very far from. Like, I catch myself wanting to do projects around the house or around, the little bit of land that I have. And it's like, okay, well, that'd be really cool, but how can I do it cheaper?
Yeah.
How can I do it cheaper? It's like, how can I get what I need done in the cheapest way possible? And like, obviously, a lot of that has to do with resources available. How much money do I have and want to spend on it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I wonder how much would be different if our mindset was, well, I'd love to put a rock fence line there, and I can't afford to buy all the rock, but, maybe I'll just work on it little by little, and maybe I'll just keep my eye out for, fill material that, I don't know, construction sites don't need or whatever, but.
Yeah. Also, in your situation, like the society we've created for ourselves today, is that something that's worthwhile for you to invest in? Is it realistic to expect that your son or your daughter, your family or whatever would take, the next generation could really use it and be productive? Like a lot of these farms that we look back on and we're like, oh wow, they had 300, 1,000, 10,000 acres, and that sort of ties into my other commodity thought, and the land thought, that there's something about ownership of the land that provides depends on the land where you live, of course, but almost everything you need to survive. It takes a long time to build it, but you're not going to have ductless HVAC mini splits, sitting in the cave in your land that you can just go pull out. But you've got trees that you can cut down and chop up and hew into beams. I don't know.
The land provides at least. A friend and I were talking about this too, like years ago. It's like, even if you don't have everything you need, and I don't think the goal should be self-sufficiency, because we're like, I think the way God made us is like we're made for community. We're made for interaction with other people. We need that social and community. There's always going to be a draw to that, and I think to be self-sufficient is not the goal, but to have something to offer other people to trade with locally, that is a good goal. Like, we have a mutual friend who loves to beekeep, and I have no interest in beekeeping. I love to hear about beekeeping from him, and I love to buy honey from him.
Yeah.
And so that's an area where it's like, you do that with your land, and I'm happy to buy honey from you. Man, what could I do with what I have that maybe he doesn't like doing? And you build this trade system, and at least even when I was growing up, we had neighbors that gardened, and we gardened, and it's like they'd have a huge crop of onions, and our onions would get wiped out by something.
Yeah.
And so we just trade, like, hey, I'll give you potatoes for onions, and it's amazing how much excess you find yourself with at the end of the year when you have that kind of community.
Yeah. And that community, well, I guess what you just described with you having an abundance and you wanting to share it with somebody naturally drives a community, because you might not hang out with your neighbor otherwise, but if they've got something you want, you've got something they want that you produced right off your own land, it's good quality, there's just a natural inclination to barter, basically. Yeah. We're getting a little far afield from legacy, but I think I guess we're more into land now. it's just a different mindset completely of living, where you're not focused so much on the immediate gratification of like, what can I build for myself right now? It's more, what can I pass on to those in my community or the next generation, I guess.
Yeah, and I think there's a deeper satisfaction and self-worth that comes from that than anything else, really. Like, a good example of this is like deer hunting. I was talking with a friend's wife the other day. It was an Easter get together, and I think I brought venison sausage to the gathering.
Oh, cool.
And it was from a deer that he had killed, and everybody was like, "Whoa, this is awesome!" And the whole tube was gone in like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And but she and I were just talking a little bit about like just the satisfaction that comes from hunting a deer, and we were talking about like it's really hard to put into words, and it's not just a feeling. It's like a man that goes out and hunts something and brings it home with his two hands. Like, it's work, and it's work that you reap the rewards of immediately, and there's no disconnect between it. It's not like me going to work at a 9 to 5, getting paid that Friday or the Friday after, and then taking that money and going to the grocery store and buying food that, like, there's a lot of things in between that money in exchange for a good that I need, versus like work that equals immediate results that benefit me and my family and community. So I think that's part of the draw to land too, is like that connection to it that you can't replace really. You have everything to do with the outcome that you're receiving.
There's so many like flows, both like tangible and emotional, for lack of a better word, really, that come from spending time on the land that can't be replaced with money, basically. For example, you could go out and buy a pack of venison sausage, but it's not going to mean as much as if you brought it to the table yourself.
Yeah.
I felt this way at Thanksgiving a couple years ago. I had shot my first deer, so excited. I brought the backstrap for Thanksgiving, marinated it, just gently seared it and cut it up, and it was gone in like 2 minutes. It was so good.
Yeah.
And I just remember feeling so like, dang, like I actually brought that to the table and everybody loved it. Like that was a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, it's almost like your taste buds are heightened when dude shot this, he brought it over here. Like this thing never saw the freezer.
Yeah.
I've eaten things that I've shot, and it's like you overcook it or something, and you still eat it and you still enjoy it because there's just that connection that I don't know, you can't explain it, but you have that connection to what you did and what you're enjoying from your works.
Yeah.
And maybe that's part of tying this back into legacy, like a grandson who looks at a timber frame barn that his grandpa's grandpa put up. Once they can reach, if they're at an age where they can understand that, and I don't know, anybody who's put in like hard days work in putting something together and wrestling it, like they can look at that and just appreciate what went into it, and the thought of like, this isn't just for me, this is for generations.
Yeah, that's a good point. I would just add to that. I think that appreciation has to be nurtured, especially in today's society, because there are more fleeting pleasures that I think are more enticing on the surface level, like video games or a concert, or I guess in this case, the streamers. That can very easily, I think, and have disassociated kids from the land. Of course, we have like the bubble wrap parents now, where kids don't even go outside. But it is natural, but I think it's very natural for kids to love being outside and to grow to appreciate something like this for what it truly is. But it takes some cultivation. In the same way that, you could walk into a cathedral in France, just pick a random one out of a hat, Notre Dame, let's say, and you immediately know, like, oh wow, that's beautiful. But if you actually know what went into it, like, the entire roof is timber framed, and the stone walls are 3 feet thick, and there's $10 million worth of copper on the roof, or whatever.
Yeah, you don't even have to know the fine details of building to appreciate some of those things. Like if you just, if someone spits out some stats like that to you, like these walls are actually made of stone and they're 3 feet thick, or you look up at this huge vaulted ceiling in a cathedral and see the beautiful beamwork, you can just look up at that and go like, wow, like how'd they do that?
Yeah.
And
no, there's no steel. Like if someone tells you there's no steel in this, you would think, well, that's not possible from a modern engineering standpoint, but they did it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's a legacy right there. That's a whole nother conversation. Ecclesiastical architecture in Europe is spectacular. And it's a great inspiration for me, really, for timber framing, actually. It may be difficult to see the connection between a barn like this and Chartres Cathedral or something like that, but everything just elevates the mind, which I think kind of ties nicely into the last point that we were going to talk about today, which is leisure.
Leisure and hard. How did you word it?
I said,
because I thought what you said was a pretty insightful. Yeah, go ahead.
Structures crafted for hardworking leisure. There's a certain work, I think, maybe it's because I'm 29, there's a certain work that is pleasurable and leisurely. For example, for me, recently I just planted a grain field, and I was out there for a couple hours every night, tilling and cultipacking and disking and trying to break the clods up and stuff like that. And I was sweating and I was working, but I felt like I was relaxing. Like it was just satisfying, and I feel like the shops and the barns, maybe not so much the homes, but it could be. I mean, you could be cooking in a kitchen that's timber framed and just really old world style.
Yeah.
And it's work, or you're canning or whatever, but
that's recreational leisure. I think is what you're experiencing or trying to.
Almost, but it's not like fishing or hunting or one of those kind of recreational leisures.
But you're recreating, and like, the root of the word, I think, I don't know if I'm no English guy, but if I look at the word recreational, I'm like, I see the word recreate, and like planting a wheat field, you're recreating something. You're taking part in creation, like you're planting a seed, and you're gonna foster that field as best you can for the recreation of more wheat. And I'm assuming, can you take the wheat and grow more wheat from that?
Hopefully.
I mean, it's not GMO that has been stripped of that gene to be capable of regerminating, but
yeah.
You're putting in work and effort, but the same could go for a person who really likes knitting, and their leisure is doing something. It's actually work, but I haven't read up on this subject, but I know that there are some out there who have given this a lot of thought, a lot of a lot of writing on it of like what is true leisure, and I think a lot of us in our modern times we've grown to have a really skewed understanding of what leisure is. We think leisure is just like sitting back and like not doing anything, or like just doom scrolling.
Yeah.
And that's how we relax. Whereas actually it's like you do something recreational, like planting a wheat field or hunting or, well, maybe not hunting. Well, hunting, yeah.
No, I think hunting would qualify.
But, like say I like whittling kids' toys with scrap pieces of lumber. It's like, actually my dad taught me how to do that, and it's like a lost thing. I haven't done one since like grade school. Huh. But, thinking of the old timer with his little carving knife set, and yeah, that too, it's like, it's work. It's focused work. Like you have to focus on what you're doing. You have to plan out a block of wood into a shape.
Yeah.
But it's recreating something. It's like it produces a result that benefits other people, and it's satisfying because of that. Because of that benefit.
Yeah, I don't really know why my mind made the connection to these structures. Perhaps you can help me fill in the gap. But for something like these structures, and maybe it's because recently we've built a lot of barns, and we had a customer, he's an older gentleman, I think he's probably in his early 80s, and he calls it his putter parlor. When you ask him what he makes, he says, I just make a lot of sawdust. And so he's in the building, he's in the structure, his shop, it's a barn like this, just tinkering and making birdhouses and stuff like that. But like you could tear apart a truck in this building. You could prepare an entire seed starting for a garden in here. We're getting into like very earthy, more country-esque things that we'll call it, but that's not really where I was hoping, or that's not the only reason I feel that these buildings are in some fashion somewhat leisurely.
I think they inspire, like the timber is very inspiring to do work. Like it's big, it's heavy, but it's also been worked. It's also been ran through a planer, and it's been refined.
Yeah.
I guess this kind of setting inspires me to, when you look at something like this, it's hard not to feel inspired to do something else that's productive, beautiful. I think the wood, not to sound like too tree huggery-ish, but like it kind of gives life, even though it's dead. It's like it kind of breathes.
There's a warmth to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess we'll wrap up from the Workbench part 2 there. Having talked, like first episode, we talked about the aesthetic of timber framing, kind of why it's beautiful, and this episode we're more behind the beams, shall we say. More in like, what's the mindset like of somebody who appreciates this? And why is it appreciable in the first place? That's probably not the right word, but why is it to be appreciated in the first place? So, next time, we'll cover some more of these.
Sounds good.
Cool.